Lay 'em on the line, bitches. It's conference tournament time. We have a good episode coming your way. Josh Nichols is joining the show in about a half hour. And we're going to go through all the conference tournaments. Brandon and I have each made selections in the form of future bets on who's going to win some of these conference tournaments. And we haven't discussed it yet. So we're going to do this live and see who we have compare. Maybe some of them are the same, maybe some of them are not. And we'll kind of give you some feedback here because it's a big week. And in terms of futures, I love this. I think you can actually make some serious money doing this. You just need really like what is if you're winning more than you're losing, you can get some good value. So we're gonna go through these conferences. We have winners for some of them, and we're gonna discuss these conferences. So which one do you want to start with, Brandon?
Why don't we just go in alphabetical order here? Start with the. I mean, some of them, like you said, we'll briefly touch on. How do I share my screen again?
Click the dots, right? Or it should be present. Yeah. Go to present. Share screen.
Share screen. My computer does sound like it's gonna blow up, so
we'll try it. It worked the last time, I thought.
All right, let me know what you're seeing.
Here we go.
Sorry, hang on. Getting rid of all these. Oh, this is okay. I mean, I'll look up the odds for this. I did not have a pick in this conference, did you?
In the America East?
Yeah.
I don't believe so, no. I don't.
I think it's pretty much Vermont's to lose, and I believe they're minus like 340, so I'm kind of staying away from this conference.
Let me pull it up. I got all the futures for each conference. And I think the America East has played some of their games already. So this would be
they're minus 370.
Okay, yeah.
So, and that's the updated bracket we're looking at. I believe they might play tonight, actually, both these semifinal teams.
It's Vermont. Vermont's the favorite.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not going to touch this conference. I think Vermont will win it, and that's not good value for me. So.
Right. No, I wouldn't touch UMass Lowell. They've never gone. Bryant is not good. I've seen them play, and then New Hampshire they just pulled an upset, so they're still alive. Yeah, I didn't make a pick here. I wouldn't touch it if I were you, unless you want to parlay that with something else, which I didn't know was possible with the future. So I wouldn't touch it.
Yeah.
America East.
I actually might parlay all my futures as well.
I don't know if
see what the odds are. Yeah, you can on FanDuel.
Okay.
It's over plus 117 million, so we'll try it. We'll put $1 on it.
It's worth. Yeah, it's absolutely worth it.
How amazing would that be? That's all we need on the American East. It's kind of a weak conference. The American Athletic, probably the same thing. I'm going to guess if anyone's watching this or whoever is not.
The bracket's not.
Watch the team in this conference.
The bracket's not.
And all right. You can't make fun of my spelling.
Okay.
$2024. Oh, wait a minute. I do like this conference, and I do have an opinion, but I'll let you start.
Well, we can't see the bracket.
You're not seeing the bracket?
No, it's still the same page before that where it shows all the conferences.
What the fuck? Hold on then, sheets. So you didn't even see the last bracket?
No.
This is how smart we are on Lamb on the line.
We're trying new technology. It's going to come with some trial and error.
Yeah, keep listening. A year from now, we'll be pros at this. We'll probably have someone hired like Stolken to do this shit for us.
Right. We'll have our own studio. We'll be doing this in person eventually.
Correct. All right, so let me pull up this bracket. Present, slide. Nope, not slides. Share screen. Okay, it's not the best picture of the bracket, But you start because I think I have. I started my. I was going to pick one team and I switched last minute, but go ahead.
Okay, so this is the AAC. I think you might have briefly mentioned it before we got on. I think we have the same team. I took South Florida, and I think you were starting to say that too.
Well, Sheets, I actually started with South Florida and taken them. I have a future on Memphis. I think they're a team that
Okay.
can get hot. I think they need to win to get in, maybe. I'm pretty sure they're not even on the bubble anymore. If they are, they're hanging by a thread. And let's see, what value did I get in there? Plus 440. I like that. South Florida is obviously the one seed and has played well. And I am high on South Florida. I don't know what I've watched this Memphis teams a couple of times as of late, and I like what they're doing.
It's always going to be a roller coaster. A couple weeks ago, I bet against them, and they were down 20 at halftime. I was laughing it up. I think we talked about this last week. I was laughing it up, and then the next thing you know, they win by 19. They flipped it in the second half by 40 point swing. So I mean, there's some firepower to them. Absolutely, I don't think that's a bad bet. FAU, it's been weird because that's obviously a Final Four team last year. They're in the tournament, by the way. Regardless of what happens, they'll be in. Even if they were to lose right away, I think they should get in. They're pretty much just about a lot. And then South Florida, I don't. If they might have to win the whole thing to get in. I'm not sure if they're at large status. I don't think they are in terms of a lock to get in. And then Memphis, like you said, was in the bubble. They're kind of off. They're still in the picture. They're not off of the bubble completely, but I don't know if going to the championship game and losing is enough. I think they would have to win it all. So their bubble is very small. That's not bad value though at plus 440. I got South Florida at plus 575. My thought is they were the regular season champs. If Florida Atlantic and Memphis were going to prove they're the best team, they would have done it by now. And I don't know. I like South Florida. They play a good style of ball. I want to see them win, and I think they will. But if it's not them, I do like that Memphis pick. I don't think it's going to be FAU this
year. Yeah, I don't think so either. I'm very intrigued to see if South Florida gets in on the Selection Sunday. I'm guessing they probably need to get to the championship, but that Memphis team is going to be in their way. So we'll see. Let's go to the Atlantic 10 Sheets.
Sweet. I do have a future in this one.
I do not. So I'll kind of let you take the wheel on this. But
you still don't pull up the bracket?
Yeah.
All right, so we got the A10 here. This one's a little tougher to read, but what I came up with is Richmond as to win this one, plus 600. Dayton is obviously everyone's favorite. They are probably an at-large team. I think they're pretty safely an at-large team. If they were not to win the conference championship, they would still most likely be in. Even though I'm not that sold on them, I don't think their resume is that impressive. Some people like fucking Fat Joe Lenardi are putting them at like 5, 6 seeds. No, I wouldn't put them anything higher than a 7 right now. I'm not that sold on them. I think this is going to be a 2-bid league. I think it's going to be Richmond, like they did the year they beat Iowa. I think it was against Dayton as well in that championship game. If not, maybe like a VCU. But they weren't supposed to win that year. The year that would have been what now? 2 years ago now. Iowa faced Richmond. They weren't supposed to be the favorite in that league. They were kind of a bid stealer. So I think it's gonna be the same scenario there. Richmond plays a good style of ball, and they've been playing good ball lately. I just don't trust Dayton. I think they're still better than VCU. George Mason's not impressive. Loyola Chicago's kind of turned it on a little bit, but I still think Richmond spirals. I see Dayton and Richmond getting in here, and then Richmond plucks away in that large spot from somebody.
Yeah, I haven't watched. I'd be lying if I've said I've watched a lot of this conference this year. So I'm going to trust you, and I may ride that pick as well.
It's about the conference is about the similar level to like the Missouri Valley, but maybe depending on the year, one's a little bit better than the other. Obviously, this year the Missouri Valley's got a little bit more firepower, I would say, at the top with Drake and Indiana State. But They're about equal. I'd say that's similar conferences. A10 and Missouri Valley.
Next one's a big one. We're going to head on over to the ACC once I get your bracket pulled up here. And this should be a better read, maybe. Let's see. So this is one I went for a little bit of value in sheets. I think the obvious answer would be North Carolina, but I didn't like the juice. I actually am going to sprinkle some on Wake Forest plus 800. They beat Duke earlier this year, and I think they're probably a little bit out of it in the same spot as Memphis. They may be on the bubble. I'm not sure, but they need to win to get in. A sweat free get in. So I'm taking plus 800 Wake Forest. Are you on UNC or Duke?
I didn't take this conference. I didn't take the ACC because I don't know who's going to win. Seriously, I don't know if it's going to be Duke or UNC. I didn't. I go with the team that really needs it. And if you're thinking that way, because the ACC is, like we talked about last week, it was the powerhouse growing up. This year, it's historically bad. I mean, they're begging for teams to get in. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of, shenanigans that go on and a team like Wake Forest or Virginia wins it. Because obviously Duke and UNC are going to be square in there in the tournament. Even if they don't lose, they're still probably going to be about a 1, 2, or 3 seed. So it wouldn't affect them that much. I think, the conference is really gunning for a team like Wake Forest or a team like Virginia. Maybe even, Pittsburgh's kind of in that same spot too. Team that went last year, a little bit probably less strong than they were last year, but still trying to get in there on the bubble. They're kind of in the same realm as a team like Iowa is. So I kind of like that. Don't go for the favorites maybe in this one. Maybe try for one of those teams that really needs to make a big push.
Yeah, this is a sprinkle, not a full unit. And like I said, I just like that value, and I feel like anything can happen in the ACC tournament. So Wake Forest is my pick.
I like that.
Is the A-Sun, are they done already?
They're still going. I took a live A-Sun one, so we can bring it up quick if we want.
Yeah, let me just get the bracket pulled up. If you can start talking about it while I get the bracket.
Okay. So the A-Sun is weird. It's honestly, if we're being honest with ourselves, the A-Sun has the shittiest format. They so like the first round in some of these smaller conferences, usually the team will host the higher seed will host a game, so that way at least their fans are there. But the A-Sun must think there's some kind of fucking big shots, so they have their first round games at neutral sites, and no one's going, no one's traveling from these schools, especially like some of the shittier ones in the first round. Like these teams aren't very good. No one's gonna travel to see the fucking 10 and 13 seed play other than parents. So there's nobody at these games. I think like the first round attendance was like 400 people at some of these games. And if they would have put it at a home teams, like actual stadium, they would have at least got like 1,000 people, So the A-Sun is kind of shitty. And then they break it up. They play a game, then they break it up. It's not a true tournament we playing each day. So the A-Sun, we were talking about it last week when we went live, and we still haven't crowned a winner yet.
Wait, whoa, Sheets. This is saying Stenson won the championship.
A-Sun? Maybe that was yesterday.
I think they completed yesterday, and they won 94-91 against.
I'm thinking of Horizon.
They did.
Bad. That's on me. That's a fuck up on me. I'm thinking of the Horizon League. So skip
Which I'd like to say, I didn't bet it, so I can't really humble brag about it. But I would have picked Stenson. I bet on them all year.
That's easy, but
yep, I get it.
So the A-Sun is gone. Stetson Hatters, by the way, that's right. They won yesterday. First time in school history, Stetson's going to the tournament.
Good for them. I like Stenson. Green and gray, maybe, I think. My computer is literally going to blow up here soon, but we may have to do an X-nay on the bracket.
That's fine.
But let me get the Big 12 at least pulled up for you. I have a very interesting take on this one, or an interesting bet on it. So I'd be interested. I want to hear what you have to say.
You want me to go first?
Yep.
I took Baylor. I took the Baylor Bears. And because I think this is the best value of all these conferences, if there's going to be a long shot who I can realistically see winning it, and the value is just spectacular, it's Baylor Bears. Now, I'm a DGen, so I have like 6 different apps, and I shop around to see which one the best line is. I think it's smart, but it takes a lot more time. So I totally get people who are just a one app guy, whatever they get it. I get it because it does take a lot more time. But I shopped around and I got the Baylor Bears on Circa Sports plus 775. I think that's incredible odds. They're what? They're the 3rd seed maybe behind
3 seed. Yep.
for a 3 seed. Usually that's like a 400 or 500 plus odds. Everybody and their mother is betting on Houston to win this thing. So that means it doesn't have to be strictly Baylor. My main thing is I don't think it's Houston, and I think Baylor makes the most sense. And like those odds are incredible, plus 775. I would think that's like what you get the 5 seed at, like a Texas Tech maybe, or So I'm in love with that bet. I wouldn't mind Cyclones. I think actually the main point of this is I think fade Houston. I don't think they win.
You and I are on the same page, Sheets, except I got a different team that's not Houston.
Okay.
I do like Baylor a lot. They're on the opposite side of Houston, so even if they do meet up with them, they don't have to play until the championship. And for some reason, I see this Houston team having an earlier exit than most people think in the Big 12. And I don't think that's a bad thing for their future later on in March Madness. But I have BYU at plus 1100. They went into
Oh, yeah.
Kansas, gave them the work. They almost gave Iowa State the work at Hilton, two of the toughest places to play. They're playing pretty well right now. They're very fast, and their guards are really good, which I think sets up well for tournament play. So I like BYU, especially. I hate to say it, if Iowa State or Baylor gets there, I think BYU has a good shot at winning those games, and especially at that value.
I like that too a lot. Like you said, they're playing great ball, and it's kind of crazy. Like the I don't like to say this, but I don't fuck around. I don't lie. The Big 12 is the best conference in college basketball this year. I will admit it. It doesn't give me any
Thank you.
satisfaction. Yeah.
Thank
But
you.
the fact that BYU is what the fucking, I mean, like they don't even have a double bye. That blows my mind because they're playing so well. I think that's good odds too. Plus, you said 1100. I totally like
Yeah.
that. I don't think it's Houston, and I don't know. I mean, even Iowa State, maybe not even them. I think it's like one of those other teams, like kind of what we're thinking. So
Yeah. No, I'm gonna have to see what I can get Baylor at once we're done. But my computer quieted down, so we're gonna keep rolling with the
nice.
brackets. And the next one is a very big one. A lot of people think maybe the most important one out there. And it's the Big East.
All right. So looking at the Big East, I don't believe. Let me double check. No, I did not take a future in this one because it's crazy, unpredictable, and I think UConn. Are they just overwhelmingly the favorite? I would assume, and
Yeah, they are. But
I just
I
don't. I mean, Marquette's kind of banged up. I don't see them. I don't see anybody beat Creighton, and I wouldn't hate going with Creighton, but I don't see Marquette. I don't see Seton Hall. Um, I don't see St. John's.
so funny you say that because I took Creighton and I got them at plus 390. Now on the opposite side of UConn, Marquette is without Kolek. I think they easily get to the championship. And I think they can beat UConn. They've got beat in 2021 and 2022, both in the championship games. Actually, one of them they got absolutely waxed. I think they're looking for revenge, and I think they're going to get it done this year, despite UConn being what most people think the best team in the country.
I mean, I like that. Like I said, if it's not going to be UConn, it would be great. I don't think there's any chance Marquette gets there, and then I mean, Seton Hall. No, are you kidding
And
me? No.
you can tell me what you think of this, Sheets. But going into this, I stayed away from obvious one seeds like UConn, like Houston, because I feel like shit does happen in March. Obviously, we all know that, and it's just not that fun betting on the guy that the team that's supposed to win it.
Right. And there's one team that I did, we'll get to later, but it's just because I'm like, there's absolutely no way anyone else beats them, and the odds were good. Do you know what the odds were or are on UConn right now? It can't be good.
Yep, -150. So they're not. I mean, they're not horrible,
All right,
but
that's not bad. That's not bad. That's worth betting on, I would say. I thought it would be higher than that. I wouldn't mind. Yeah, I wouldn't mind taking that either. But that's. I thought it would be like, yeah, I guess I thought it'd be higher. Either one of those two, though. I don't see anybody else even. I don't think it's worth a sniff on like Marquette, the 3 seed.
I'm so dumb, Sheets. I need to prepare more because I'm gonna go right back on my word and tell you who I'm picking for the Big Ten, and it is indeed the one seed, Purdue. I don't think in this conference. I think there's clear cut. I think it's Purdue way up there. Illinois is a little further down, but way ahead of everyone else, and then everything else is kind of a crapshoot. I think Purdue gets this done with ease.
Yeah, and that's what I'm going with too. And I did take Purdue. The odds aren't like super great, but it's plus odds. Purdue is plus
Plus
odds.
money, yeah.
Right. I just, in my opinion, that's a free $10. It's a free $11, whatever you get of that. I got it at plus 110, so I get $11. But even if you get it at plus 100, even money, it's just a free $10 in my opinion.
If you're gonna go dark
even
horse, maybe
Illinois,
Michigan
who's the
State.
second best. I wouldn't touch them. I don't think they're worth putting your hard-earned money on them right now.
I'm
They
not
burn
going
me.
to, but
Right. I just even like the Izzo statement, where it's just still Izzo in March. This is right now. This team is not worth putting your money on. I don't believe. Even the Izzo effect doesn't. It does not intrigue me at all. And so even like Illinois, who's the second best team in the conference, I don't see them winning at all. It's Purdue, baby. It's Purdue. Come on.
I like it. This is a very interesting one. Let's get this one up. And let me show you what conference I am referring to. Son of a bitch. Hang on. Well, it's the Mountain West, Sheets. Do you have a pick for this?
I do. And this is kind of a crowded lineup here. So you could go a couple different ways. I don't think there's a clear and obvious one. But the team that I do like, and it's just because they've been a team I've been able to trust all year long, betting wise. And you got it. There we go. And I think our good buddy Ryan Stolken would agree with me. This is a solid team this year. Boise State plus 650 is what I took them at. I got that on bet 365 at plus 650 odds. I do like them. I do like them to kind of run out of this year. And let's see, can you see where they're at? They're the 2 seed there.
3 seed.
The 3 seed, yeah. The 3 seed, Nevada's at the 2. Nevada went on a tear to close the year. They end up with the 2. Boise State, the 3 seed. They placed the winner of New Mexico and Air Force. So probably New Mexico, but New Mexico can't win a damn game. I think it's a good advantage there. And I just like that side of the bracket better for them. And I don't see Utah State. I don't see Nevada. I think it's going to be kind of a wild card again, and I like those odds. I don't see San Diego State.
I agree with you. I do not have a pick yet, although I would go with anyone but San Diego State, and that includes New Mexico, Nevada, Utah State, and Boise State. By the way, Boise State is plus 700 on FanDuel right now. So if you wanted to double dip, I don't know. I don't think San Diego State's going to win it. So who would out of those 4 teams, did you say you have a pick? Boise State plus 700?
Yeah, I took Boise State. I got them at plus 650. I wonder if I can switch that shit. Get on the FanDuel boost, but
yeah,
I'm on.
like I said, I don't know. I don't really have a good reasoning for this. I just don't think it's going to be San Diego State. So, and weirdly, they're the 5 seed and they're plus 240.
Right. I mean, the seeding in a lot of these conferences, it's just kind of a crapshoot. It's a lot of them just changed on the last day. Teams went up and down. It's really, don't, when you're looking at these, I wouldn't get too caught up on what the seeds are. Just stick to what you know and who you think the best team is. What do you think the best value is? The seed numbers can trip you up. And if you think, oh, that's the 5 seed, I don't know. Just stick to what you know. And if you got a hunch one way or the other, don't let the seed numbers hold you back.
I agree. I agree. Um, Nichols comes on, but I want to know if you ended up biting on this one at all. And we touched on it quite a bit last week because they may have the weirdest bracket in
Mm.
sports. Um, West Coast Conference. Now they've already started, and there's 4 teams left. But you can still get odds today. Did you have a pick, or are you going to have a pick in this one?
I did not take this one. I didn't take Gonzaga or St. Mary's. Which is probably who it's going to be. I believe those games are actually tonight. It's the semifinals already, right?
Yep.
Yeah, the semis already tonight. We talked about it last week. Funny conference because the top 2 seeds get a bye to the semis. They just got to win 2 games. So in most years, that's Gonzaga and St. Mary's. BYU used to be in the WCC, so they would get it to the 2 seed sometimes. But it really, for some of these smaller conferences, they like to joke about how dumb this looks, but it makes the most sense. Um, I didn't take anybody though. I didn't take Gonzaga or St. Mary's, but it's probably going to be one of them. I just don't think. I mean, if it's Gonzaga, the odds aren't great, and if St. Mary's does win it, I'm gonna be pissed that I blew a Gonzaga bet, and I don't I just don't see much odds on here. But if you think Gonzaga is a for sure fire winner, go for it. And if you say St. Mary's gonna beat them, go for that. I have no action.
Well, if you're looking for value right now, it'd be St. Mary's. You can get them at plus money. Gonzaga is currently minus 160. However, I mentioned on the pod I got them at plus 110 March 4th, so last week. And I love those odds. They're actually offering me a cash out already for a little bit more money, but I think Gonzaga is going to win this one. I have a solution for our argument last week.
Okay.
I think the regular season should mean more.
Yeah.
What if it did mean more in terms of the conference tournaments? You had to go play at the better seed, like they get to host the game.
That works for this. That's you just got to do it conference by conference. I don't think you can have a big sweeping mandate. It doesn't work for. It would be dumb for the Big Ten to go play a game at fucking, and then they got to go travel the next one. That's the best. The big conferences make the most sense when you have it in place. I think that's the fun of it.
True.
Then all these teams come and you got to watch your team. You don't know if you're gonna be there for a day. You're gonna be there for the whole weekend. It's a fun thing. I think if for some smaller schools, that's what they do. They play it at the home gyms. That makes sense because they want the home team to win. And like I said, the ASUN tried to do everything at one big event. Fucking nobody is going to want to watch the opening round at a neutral site. 440 people went. That was over 2 games. 2 games. They had 440 people total. So
that's sad. They should maybe look at Division Two. But no, I agree with you. Now that I'm thinking about it, I was just looking for an advantage or disadvantage for the regular season, and yeah, I would not like it if the Big 12 didn't play all in Kansas City. The idea of you're buying session passes, and then you maybe have to sell them because your team lost. There's just a whole thing, and then everyone's there from the whole crowd. I mean, yeah, you're right. That does have to stay.
Yeah. There's a push though for a lot of people to do kind of what Gonzaga did, and is play a couple of non-conference games later in the year. Now I don't know where the majority of the college basketball fan base stands on this one. I get it. You want to get the non-conference games at the beginning, so then it's just pure conference. You're just doing strictly conference. But at the same time, you get teams like fucking Oklahoma who started the year like 12-0, and now they're starting to stink, but they're still going to get in, even though they're slumping. They have a losing record in the Big Ten or the Big 12, but they'll get in because they started off the year so hot. Maybe if you split up some of these non-conference games, maybe it evens it out. For a team who had a poor start, has to try to fight their ass off at the end. Maybe that's one thing you could consider changing. I don't know if there's any rules against that, but it seems like that was kind of like a rare thing when Gonzaga and Kentucky did that, and I think they did it against somebody else too. Also, right? Gonzaga?
I wouldn't hate it if they just sprinkled in non-con all the way throughout the year.
I mean, February, maybe there's a cutoff sometime in February, but something like that, yeah.
I like the idea of, because typically in now's game, you get the whole non-conference, kind of figure your team out before you head into conference schedule. Well, this would allow, if you have a bad start, you better fucking pick it up quick, because you're going to have 2 non-cons at a conference game, then a non-con at a conference game, and it's just random. I like that idea. You get Mize, I like the haircut you cut. Did you get it cut, or did you just restyle it?
I'm just growing the flow out.
He's down there hog hunting right now. He hasn't hit a single hog. He's been there for 3 days.
Really? How many days? This trip?
I don't know. Maybe he'd pop in later.
Maybe. He needs to get some fucking hogs. Do you want to bring our guest on, or do we have anything else?
Yeah, bring on Mick Nichols.
Okay. Welcome to the show.
What's up? Josh, happy to be here.
Is that an LA Dodgers hat?
Yeah, it's more for the fashion statement. I actually fucking hate the Dodgers. Can't stand them. Least favorite team in the MLB, but it's the new era golfer rope cap. So I think you got to have 4 to 5 specific MLB hats. Just as a baseball fan, I think the Dodgers is one of them, even if you hate them.
That's the most Nichols thing I've ever heard.
I think, honestly, I think Nichols actually, I will say, I do kind of respect that. Baseball is the one sport. You'll never see me wearing really hardly any other team's NFL hats. Maybe NBA, but not so much. But baseball, it's just kind of, if you're a baseball fan, you just love the game. So
like I would never Dodgers, put on the Yankees, they're iconic franchises. Like I don't like either of them. I actually hate both of them, but I think there's teams that have sick hats. Like the Diamondbacks have sick hats, and they've got a bunch of them. So that's another team I think you can rock. But
right. I like the same thing with colleges too. I don't mind, and I mean, I could pull a couple numbers out of my closet right now. I got an Oregon sweatshirt. I got a Texas A&M sweatshirt.
Yeah,
I don't mind using some of those.
I've got my Carolina gear, my Drake gear, my Iowa gear, and then I've got a random LSU. I've got the iconic Duke jersey that's been passed down from generation to generation. I hate Duke. That Duke football jersey, that means something to this campus. So
it does.
Speaking of Duke, what is it about that shit program over there having white boys always tripping players? Did you guys see Filipowski trying to trip a player?
So dirty.
What are we doing? What has Duke got in the water over there that these guys just think they can do whatever the fuck they want?
It's the Coach K effect. Shire, it rubbed off on Shire. They cheat. I mean, Shire started on third base and hasn't done shit, and I personally love it, but
I would agree too. It's just kind of the Duke way. Obviously, these schools historically kind of recruit a certain type of mold, and for Duke, it's just always been preppy white boys who, kind of like Nichols said about the head coach, and the same thing kind of goes to some of the players. They're born on third base, and some of them do end up scoring a run, but I mean, it's just kind of the style. They want these preppy white boys, and they want them to show out and act up. And now Christian Laettner started this whole trend, but he beat the passes hands down. It just kind of rubbed off on these guys who aren't so good, who think they can do that shit. Fuck them.
Yeah, like the Jack Whites, the Kennards, the Filipowskis. Grayson Allen was a dog. He's a douche, but he was a really good player. JJ Redick, same thing. JJ Redick had a heck of a career, and that dude could shoot it. But I mean, if you're a good white kid at Duke, you're gonna be one of the most hated kids in college basketball, and all these guys have earned it, tripping guys and just cocky and don't play the game the way it was meant to be played.
No.
Do you
not
play
at
the
all.
game it was meant to be played?
No, not at all. I don't play defense. I'm not a great ball handler, but I'll shoot it better than anyone you put me up against.
I do remember we were going to play 3v3 on the concrete at Bremwood, and Nichols joined us one day. Probably got dunked on 3 different times. He didn't play any defense. You're right. You just stayed out the perimeter the whole time, but you did hit a decent amount of threes. So
Not a lot of guys are going to pull up from range on small ball, but
the very first one, he shoots damn near from half court. We're all like, "What the fuck are you doing, Nichols?" His first shot.
shooters got to shoot.
But let's talk about your boys in blue, hometown heroes.
That was one of the most stressful games I've ever watched. I mean, even like last year when Drake beat Bradley in the championship down in St. Louis, they won by 28 or whatever. Bradley scored to keep it within 30, and I was still stressed the entire game because a good team like Bradley, like you never knew if they had a comeback in them. Indiana State was way more explosive this year than Bradley was last year, and they showed that. Just when up 18 with 10 minutes to go, it never fell over. Indiana State hits a couple threes, gets a couple stops, and I mean, they got 4 really explosive dudes, and then Avila, and he's incredibly fun to watch. He plays, I mean, I don't want to disrespect Jokic, but that's kind of the style he plays. It's a game he plays. He's a big kid, can shoot it effectively. He's a great passer, fundamental. And they kind of built their team how the Nuggets built theirs and won their titles. They put 4 explosive dudes out there around a kid that's just got the best fundamentals in the region, and just it's a winning recipe. So yeah, that comeback, I wasn't surprised, but really happy Drake ended up weathering the storm and getting the ship to shore.
Meisner, did you watch that game?
Oh, absolutely. I took the Drake Bulldogs to cut down the Nets at Arch Madness. That was on my futures. So that was great to see. There was also another game. I think it was the Ohio Valley that was going on at the same time. So I was flipping back and forth because I had a future on Austin P and one of these other ones. And it was like they started at the same time. It was exact same time. And Drake was ahead by like 15 or 20. So I'm like, oh, I'm going back to the other one. And then I checked my phone, and 10 minutes later, everyone's like, what the fuck? Blowing up, the group chat's going nuts. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I flip back over there. The goddamn game's almost tied. But they pulled it back. They did what they had to do. And it was a good day. It was a good day for the league. I think the best team won. And I think Indiana State did enough where they should get 2 teams in.
I think Indiana State deserves to be in 100%. And the hard thing is I don't know if they're going to get in. They should, because the NCAA does this whole thing with net. That's their metric that Indiana State's a top 30 team in the country. But then you look at the resume of quad 1 record, not great. I mean, when I look at these teams, Drake's resume was good enough to get an at-large bid. Their net just wasn't high enough. But they're 3-1 or 4-1 in quad 1 games. They've got a better at-large resume than a bunch of these power conference teams on the bubble that are going to get in. So that's what I worry about with Indiana State is just their quad 1 record, but their net's high enough. It shouldn't even be a question if they're in or not, but I do worry about that.
Right now, Big Man Joe has them as, I believe, the last team in.
Yeah, when I looked, they were in the last 4 in.
Yep.
And then I look at Jerry Palm. This idiot doesn't even have him on the bubble. Doesn't have him in. Doesn't even have him in like the first 12 out. And I'm like, Jerry, this is why you get laughed at by everyone that's looking at brackets. Yeah, you update your bracket every day. People appreciate that. But it is terrible.
Yeah.
My only source is Lenardi, although I should switch to what Meisner told me last week. It'd be big for Iowa if Indiana State doesn't get in, though.
Yeah, Iowa has to win 2 games in Minneapolis this week. If they had beat Illinois and then won their first round game, they were in as a lock. But now you got to win 2 games, which they're going to have to beat Ohio State, who's actually playing good ball, and then you got to beat Illinois, they're good.
So your logic, which I don't disagree with, that Indiana State should be in as a lock. Let's say Iowa wins 2 games. Who do you think is more deserving for that spot, Indiana State or Iowa?
That's hard because Indiana State's resume isn't going to change. Iowa's is, and Iowa's quad one record will be better. They'll have more signature wins, but Indiana State's net is going to be better. It's going to be hard. I think the committee is going to have some tough choices, but the whole thing that messes it up is San Diego State going to the title game last year, because now the Mountain West is getting all this respect, and I do think it's a good league. I think they should have 4 or 5 teams in, but everyone's saying there's a lock for 6. Colorado State's in like the last 4 buys, and they went 10-8 or 9-9 in Mountain West play. And then you look at UNLV, they're 12-6 or 13-5. They got a chance to win the Mountain West, and the Mountain West is going to steal bids and get 7 teams in. And I don't think Indiana State should. I think Iowa and Indiana State are both more deserving than Colorado State and New Mexico.
The bubble is tough. We talk about it now, and it will change tomorrow.
Right.
There's going to be bid thieves, so we'll have to see how it all shakes out. You are right, though. After the loss yesterday, Iowa does have to win 2 games. Ohio State and the loss to Illinois, you're on the bubble. You're not 100% out. There's maybe a chance somehow they put us in. I wouldn't think so, though. I think you got to win 2, absolutely. If you win 2 games, that's a 20-win season. 20 wins in the Big Ten. You finish 500 regular season, then you went 2-1 in the conference tournament. That's a lock for me. You win 20 games in the Big Ten, you're 500 or better, you're in. I don't give a shit how weak or strong it is.
And I think, if you look at the Big Ten bracket, if Iowa beats Ohio State and Illinois, they got a great chance to get to Sunday, because who's the 3? Nebraska? It's Nebraska or Northwestern. It's one of those 2.
I think Northwestern's the 3 and Nebraska's the 4.
Yeah. We went to Northwestern and won. I have no doubt in my mind, we play Northwestern again, we're going to win. I think if you beat Ohio State, Illinois, you're going to beat Northwestern or whoever comes out of that pod. And if you get to Sunday, you're a lock. Don't even have to worry about it. You might get a decent seed too.
What really killed you is you guys went 1-6 against AP top 25. You needed one more of those games, 2-5.
And getting swept by Maryland and losing a game to Penn State. Those are 3 games Iowa should have won. If you're sitting here at 21-10 instead of 18-13, you're in.
Oh yeah, you're an 8 seed, 7 seed.
Yeah, and you still could have done that. You still could have gone 1-6 against AP top 25, and you were going to be in as a single-digit seed.
I forget you guys played Creighton and kept it within 8 points earlier this year.
Yeah, and that game was kind of back and forth. Creighton had a lead, Iowa cut into it, and it was kind of back and forth, and just never were really able to get it close. Peyton Sanford got hurt in the second half, had to sit a few minutes, and that's just a tough game.
So we're on the Big Ten tournament. Miser and I were going through a lot of the conferences, picking futures. We're both on the same boat that Purdue is going to win this Big Ten tournament. Are you in that same boat?
It's theirs to lose. Illinois is capable of winning it. I don't think Michigan State's playing well enough to win the Big Ten tournament. You can't count Izzo out, but they're not playing well enough. It's Purdue's to lose. Illinois is really good. They're capable of beating. They're capable of beating Purdue, but I don't think they will. And Wisconsin's just looked terrible lately. So it's Purdue's to lose. It's kind of sad this year, honestly. Like Michigan State's down. Michigan getting last in the Big Ten kind of makes me sick, because that's a program that should be top 25 every year. And Jawan's running it into the ground.
Yeah, the Big Ten has just been disappointing. Like the Big Ten regular season race was not a non-factor. It was just a 1-team horse. Illinois kind of made it interesting for a second, but not really even.
Yeah.
And then this conference tournament, like you said, it's usually there's a big buzz. It's like, and in my mind, even though I'm a Big Ten fan, even though I was 100% non-biased, I still think it's the most iconic. I think it is the best conference tournament. There's a reason to play right before Selection Sunday.
Right. And you look at Big Ten, just like in our time from like childhood up into college, you got programs. Michigan was there every year as a contender. Michigan State, Purdue, Indiana, Ohio State was always really good. And then now you bring in like Maryland. That's a program that's had a lot of success since 2000. They're a team. Purdue's obviously there. Illinois has gotten good the last few years. Wisconsin had a really good run. Iowa's had their years, but Yeah, no, it's a down year, but I do think the Big Ten tournament's going to be fun to watch just because you really don't know what's going to happen aside from Purdue, and Purdue should win every game. But I think the rest of the games, there should be some parity, and they've gone back to the old logo at center court, which makes me happy.
Let me ask you. Go ahead, Mize.
What do you think, Nichols, about the Big Ten tournament has kind of traveled around. This year it's in Minneapolis. Obviously, it's a good venue, but do you think it should just be in one spot? Think it should be Chicago, or do you kind of like when they rotate?
I like when they do the Indianapolis, Chicago every other year because I think both those cities, obviously, Indianapolis is in the heart, but Chicago is an iconic city, and it's close enough to the middle of everything going on. I think those are good spots for it. I do like that it's in Minneapolis because I think that's a great host city, but for the Big Ten, I think you got to go Indianapolis, Chicago every year. I mean, they've had it in Washington, they've had it in New York. I don't like all that. I think you got to go Indianapolis, Chicago, but there's a lot of great cities in Big Ten country that could host it and would be good hosts. I mean, Minneapolis, New York was cool, but that's the Big East. Big East belongs in New York, not the Big Ten. Washington, I don't like that. That's where the ACC's at this year, I believe.
Really?
Not Greensboro or Brooklyn. But I mean, there's a lot of places you could have the Big Ten, but I think it's got to be Indy and Chicago.
I think Minneapolis would be a good third, and then you rotate those three. We don't need to call out fucking New York City. That was embarrassing. I don't think it was cool at all. It was the Big East's turf. It was, and we had to do it a week earlier. We weren't the last, that year we weren't the last team to play on a Sunday because they had a reserve that week. Stupid.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cities, like, I don't think you could go to Detroit for it, but that's in the heart of Big Ten country. You got two powerful programs in that state, but I think it's Indianapolis and Chicago. I don't mind Minneapolis as a third, but at some point, like, if you're going to start going that far west, then you got to send it back out east, and I don't like Philly, Washington, or New York for that, so I think you got to go Indy, Chicago.
I agree. I think that's fair.
I'm looking at a bracket, Fat Man Joe's. Obviously, we have no idea what the bracket's going to look like, but I want your take on these two games that caught my eye. If number 6 seed Wisconsin played number 11 St. John's.
Yeah, so when I look at that 6-11 line, I mean, you don't know who they're going to put in the first four. I mean, if Iowa gets in the tournament, they got a very good chance of being on that 11 line. St. John's, Villanova. I don't think Villanova should make the tournament. They're not good. And they haven't done anything that's like, yeah, they're a tournament team. But, I mean, it's the name. They're big, bad Villanova. They're going to get in over Indiana State, and I don't think they should. But, yeah, St. John's, Wisconsin. I like that game because I'm a huge Pitino fan. I love Rick Pitino. He's the godfather of college hoops. You can't count him out. I mean, Iona was beating UConn at half last year. Yeah, they lost by 20, but they were the only team that really gave UConn fits at all in that tournament. Rick Pitino is not a guy I want to see. I think they beat Wisconsin because Wisconsin's just kind of fell off at the end of the year. And AJ Store's been shooting them out of games. And then he does that antic where he steals and dunks to cover the spread and hit the over yesterday. Like, not that I'm a betting man. I'm an NCAA athlete. So
right, correct.
I wouldn't know, but I had some friends that suffered from that. And I don't think Wisconsin's going to win a game in the tournament. At one point, I thought they were Final Four good. And now they're out in the round of 64.
St. John's. I'd be hammering Pitino and St. John's.
Yeah, and St. John's has struggled throughout the year, and they don't have like the big name. Like Pitino doesn't have his big name guys he usually has. And I get like he was at Iona, didn't have big names there, but like Walter Clayton's been a stud at Florida this year. But he doesn't have his huge recruits like he had at Kentucky, like he had at Louisville. But it's Pitino. He's going to scheme you up, and if you're on the other side of it, good luck.
Meisner, if I gave you a Wisconsin minus 2.5, St. John's plus 2.5, which side are you taking?
That's a tough one because Wisconsin's playing horrible ball, but they have a loaded roster. I mean, this is a legitimately Sweet 16, maybe Elite 8-esque roster they're working with. And at the beginning of the year, and even through the first half of the Big Ten, it was looking like that. Not too long ago, they were ranked in the top 10. And then recently the wheels have fallen off. And I don't know if it's a Greg Gard thing or what it is. I would still want to take Wisconsin, even though they've given me no reason to take them. I just like that roster too much. But St. John is playing good ball. That might be a dumb pick on my part, but that's a tough one.
Yeah. I mean, again, these games are obviously, this is just a prediction by Fat Man Joe. But the other one another one caught my eye, but this other one, two teams that did all they could with what they were given. They don't have the most impressive resumes. One's in a big conference, one's in a really small conference, but they have number 5 South Carolina playing number 12 South Florida.
That's an interesting one because I'm sitting here as an Iowa fan and a Drake fan thinking if we're on that, I do think Drake's good enough to be like an 8 seed, but they're not going to be. I think they're going to be on that 10-11 line. I think Iowa, if they get in, they're on that 11 line. South Carolina is a team that I'm like, kind of like that's who I want to get matched up with. So I think South Florida has done a lot this year. I mean, Memphis was really good in the American early, but they fell off. But they have the talent to win that conference tournament. Florida Atlantic, South Florida beat Florida Atlantic, Final Four team last year. Just a lot of hype around them. South Florida's silently been really good all year long. They lost a couple of stupid games they shouldn't have lost early in the year, but that's not a matchup I want if I'm South Carolina. But South Florida's got to play good ball to win, and South Carolina's they've proven themselves this year. But yeah, that's one. That's a tough one.
Mize, do you have a future on South Florida? Do I remember that correctly?
To win the AAC, yes, I do.
Yeah,
I think they're the best team. They've been the best team all year long. They play a great style ball. I like watching them play. I'm big
they're playing the Yingling Center. That's just a great beer, great name.
Yep.
The other one, just to touch on Drake, he does have Drake as a 10 seed, playing number 7 Gonzaga. That would be awesome.
I think that's a winnable game because Gonzaga has been extremely volatile all year. But part of the toughest part of that matchup is the name factor. If you're Drake, you got to go and just play your game. You're going to be just fine because in that game you have the best player on the floor. Tucker DeVries is the best player on the floor in that game. But you got to get the other 17 guys in the locker room to buy in. Okay, like it's big bad Gonzaga. You don't worry about that. You go play your game, and you're just as good as they are. Darnell Brody, when he shows up, is really good. He showed up in the tournament last year. He had a great game against Miami. He's proven that he's a good player. So Tucker does his thing. All the pieces fall into the puzzle. They beat Gonzaga. I think they're going to win a game. Depending on matchups, I think they can get to the second weekend.
I hope they do because hoops and hops, something they have going on in Des Moines every tournament year. They have this big tent with big projector screens. They were playing Drake last year when they played Miami, I think.
They had Miami dead in the water, and Miami escaped and got to the Final Four.
And this place was nuts. There was a shit ton of Drake fans. Of course, if you're from Iowa, I feel like you have to cheer for Drake. There's no reason anyone should dislike Drake.
Yeah, I see it like being up here and just being close to Cedar Falls. Obviously, you got people that are diehard UNI fans. Those are the only people that hate Drake. And I think like even Drake fan, like unless you're a diehard like Drake fan growing up, like if you're from Iowa, you have your Iowa or Iowa State, you're cheering for Drake or UNI in the tournament. If they're playing, you want them to win. Now, just like being from Des Moines and obviously like being friends with Tucker and being around that program and growing up, like watching their games, like if Drake's playing UNI, I'm going to cheer for Drake. And it's just because one of my best friends is playing on the floor. But like UNI, I'm going to cheer for them against almost any game they're in. If they're not playing Drake or Iowa, like I want UNI to win or North Carolina.
I got an interesting question because this just popped in my head. If Drake was playing Iowa State, are you cheering for Drake? Because if Drake's playing Iowa, I was just thinking about, I don't know what I would do, who I would cheer for.
You mean if Drake's playing Iowa? Because I hate Iowa State.
If Drake's playing, right. So if you're cheering for Drake to beat Iowa State in the tournament, if it gets to that.
Oh, yeah.
Same as you, Mize.
I mean, I don't. Yeah, probably. I don't have a hatred for Iowa State basketball, or even really football in most respects. They're just their fan base. I think your fan base is really annoying. But
yeah, I honestly like Iowa State. I hate Iowa State pretty much because of the fans and their delusion every year. But like Otzelberger's done a good job there. He needs a bigger shirt. I don't think there's any arguing that. But
I don't care if he's shirtless. If he's winning 24 games a year, I don't care what he can go out in the Speedo for all I care.
Yeah, well, they don't have a prayer to win it all in Kansas City, just so you're aware of that.
Sheets, no one knows cyclone basketball like I know cyclone basketball. You don't have to tell me anything about them. But
they're not going to beat. They already beat Houston once. You're not going to beat Houston twice in a season. I'm sorry.
Might not play them.
You better hope not.
Well, we handled them pretty well in Hilton, and they handled us pretty well at their place. So, anyway, back to this. They're good. They don't have a prayer to win it all. I think we know that. But I want to touch on something. You said you don't like the fans of Iowa State. There's bad fans in both Iowa and Iowa State. I understand being annoyed by them.
Yeah, there's bad fans with every fan base. I just think, I mean, people that talk like it's more so Iowa State football fans that like really annoy me because you've never like cool. You won the Fiesta Bowl against 4-3 Oregon during COVID. You've never had a 10-win season. Iowa won 10 games. Actually, they won 11 games because in my mind, the Minnesota game was a win. Tim O'Day stole that. He tried to steal it last year, got it done this year. We had the worst offense in college football and had more wins this year than you guys have ever had in a season.
There's no argument that Iowa football has outperformed and outproduced Iowa State football
it's
forever.
Just the Iowa
what are we talking about?
It's the Iowa State fans that every year they're like,
you're talking to the Zumbas of the world. Okay. I'm not in that category. You're talking to the mirrors.
I'm not putting you in that group because you're generally a reasonable guy. Zumba, yeah, that's
my point is, Sheets, every fan base has their Jackson Muir. Okay, every fan base has their Zumba. Every fan base has, I can name a couple of Hawkeye fans, but I won't because I'll just keep that out of my mouth. But I understand. And now, after what you said, I think I'll be cheering for Drake if they play Iowa. I think that's fair. I think it's fair to you to say that. I wouldn't
blame you. You're an Iowa State fan. I would expect that. But we can both agree we'll be cheering for the Bulldogs to make a run.
One last thing before we hop off here. Did you guys happen to see the South Carolina LSU women's game?
Oh, my goodness.
Nichols, are you winning a fight against that 6'7" Australian chick?
None of us are. Dude, she's a dude, bro. She's 6'7" and she's huge. Like, I mean, Flau-J Johnson is not a small person by any means. She's what, 6 foot, 6'1". She's a guard. Like, Camila Cardoso just shoved her to the ground. Like, yeah,
I think
that was a wild situation.
If the committee is smart, the women's committee, I don't know. I'm assuming it's a whole different committee than the men's.
Yeah.
Okay. If they were smart, we all know it's a fact of the matter. Women's basketball needs more eyeballs. Caitlin Clark has done a great job bringing more eyeballs to that sport. After this incident happens, they need to be on the same side of the bracket. They need to do everything they can to have a rematch in the NCAA tournament because I'm 1,000% tuning into that. And I think there might be a full-on brawl this time, not just one-on-two.
Yeah. I think you got to put LSU and South Carolina on the same side. And put Iowa on the other because you want Iowa to play as many games as possible because of the attention they draw. And I mean, there's no denying what Caitlin Clark's done for the game. She brought a ton of fans to the sport. You can't really watch any sporting event without her getting brought up, even if they have nothing to do with it. Like you're watching a football game and it gets brought up. And
I love Caitlin Clark and she deserves all the respect in the world, but sometimes she gets too bitchy about some of these non-calls and stuff. It annoys me.
Yeah,
but
she argues a lot of calls, but yeah, she's brought a lot of eyes to the game. You need to have South Carolina on the other side of the bracket because you want Iowa to play 6 games if you're the NCAA because you're having millions of people watch those games because every little girl in the country that has any interest in basketball wants to watch Caitlin Clark and they want to
Have you been talking to him? Is that what they told you?
I think that's just pretty obvious.
Okay.
Like that's what you see. Like if you're on Twitter and like you go look at like one of
you've been following him on Twitter.
No, you look at Caitlin Clark's Twitter and it's all the comments. It's all like, oh, like my daughter loves Caitlin Clark, all this. Like she's done a lot for the game, but that LSU South Carolina game might be the most watched game in the tournament because there's going to be a fight and it's going to be awesome.
As long as you're commenting on those posts, that's something to keep an eye on next Sunday to see if the committee is smart, puts South Carolina and LSU on different sides and Iowa on the other. If that is, we may as well be the women's basketball committee.
Because I think those are the two biggest watch games. You'll have Iowa and hopefully the championship game against the winner of that game. But like you can't count out Stanford or any of the other teams that are really good. USC, UCLA, Indiana. Like
you're just a walking encyclopedia, Nichols. You could ask, for those who don't know this guy, Josh Nichols, you could ask him any stat about any high school game, 1A through 4A from 2005, 2015. He'll know it.
I've gotten a little rusty on those, but I did ace a quiz the other day. I was sitting in class and I'm doing one of those Sporkle quizzes, and I was able to name all 362 NCAA Division I basketball schools, not the mascots. Type out the actual school, and it goes under their conference. So that was a couple weeks in the making. A lot of tough 359s or 360s out of 362, and you're like, dude, how did I forget Presbyterian? Like they got one of the best mascots in the game. Or how did I forget Towson? But got it done.
Meisner, what do you think about having a post-selection show after the real selection show on Sunday? And we do what we did with the NFL. We'll get like 10 guests on, one from each team or whatever. They can come on for 5 minutes and say their thoughts on the bracket and kind of go from there.
100%. Josh and I did it last year with Carter, and it was a good time. We had a lot of views on it. A lot of people realize that if they want to have a good bracket, they can't listen to fat ass Lenardi and these big wig talking heads. We talk to us common folk who watch the games, and that was one of my most viewed episodes. So absolutely, we'll do that again this year.
It was like 3 hours long too.
It was, yeah. So we'll get that going again.
That was a lot of fun. I think that one that'd be a lot of fun. I think it'd be fun to fill out brackets ahead of time and kind of make your like bracketology too. But I would like to be on here with Beck sometime and remind him about the Chiefs-Bills game. I was never able to do that, but remind him who runs the AFC. Josh Allen's due. He's going to get one in the next 2 years. I don't think the Chiefs
Tell you what,
repeat,
can you come on Sunday? I'll put you guys back to back in the lineup. That way you can talk to him for 10 seconds.
Just text me. We'll get it figured out.
Good to know. All right, perfect.
All right, Nichols, good having you on. Hey, it's conference tournament week. Real quick, I have one more feature I want to get to. In the SEC, I like Florida. They're playing good ball, plus 2,000. I think that's a sneaky pick. And, in the Pac-12, since we neglected the Pac-12 last week, I did take the favorite in that one. That's where I took Arizona. It's minus 130. Those are 2 extra picks. Nichols, do you have any final thoughts?
It's going to be a lot of fun. I really don't have a huge pick on who's going to win this national tournament. I think there's a lot of good teams. I think it's really hard to go back to back. It's obviously that's been shown. Florida's really been the only one to do it in recent history. So I don't think UConn's going to win it. So I'm excited to see who beats them, and I'm excited to see who gets to Arizona for the Final Four.
It's going to be a fun week indeed. Conference tournament week. We will, in fact, do a show next Sunday, selection show. We'll get the things worked out. We can do a bracketology review. We'll keep you updated on the Instagram, but for sure, a podcast next week, Sunday, and perhaps Monday too. Count on that. And of course, lay them on the line. We mentioned this last week. Want to make sure we mention it again. We will be doing our bracket challenge. That will come out. We will get you more information on that. But we are going to score it ourselves. So, what was the Gmail again? Didn't you set up a Gmail?
I believe it's lamb@gmail.com.
Okay.
So we'll send an email out to those. Whoever wants to be in it, you'll send me your email. I'll just tell you exactly what to do. Be a group chat. But But also, before you sign off, congrats, Nichols, on your hole-in-one.
Thank you.
Impressive.
Thanks. Happy to join the club.
Yep.
It's a good addition. But for that, we will sign off. Championship week. Enjoy it. A lot of things going to shake its way loose between now and Selection Sunday. But we will keep you up to speed with everything bracketology the rest of the week. This has been another edition of Lame on the Line. Sign